All right, welcome everyone to the RSP Film Room, and today episode number 111, and we have quite a guest. Our guest is Justis Mosqueda. Justis Mosqueda, who is with Setting the Edge, which has been a terrific podcast. If you haven't checked it out with he and Charles McDonald, you definitely have to do so. He's had a great array of guests on thus far. They talk some great stuff. And then also you can catch him at Bleacher Report doing the NFL 1000 with defensive ends, also grading defensive ends, and also the the NFC East, correct?
I just do the NFC in general.
NFC in general. Okay,
Yep.
sweet. And of course, if you don't know Justice from Force Players, then you need to watch some previous RSP episodes, or you just need to get on Twitter, really, and just find out really what he's doing with that, which is really a great kind of metric study as well as combined film look at edge players. And today we're going to get a chance to look at an edge player that Justice has done some homework on and is going to present here tonight. So tell us a little bit about Derek Rivers.
Yeah, so Charles came on here and did Julio Johnson, our son, our defensive tackle son from Iowa, early on in the year. So he's the interior D line guy. So I had to come on and do the edge guy. Derek Rivers, Youngstown State. He played for Bo Pelini. Bo Pelini, former Nebraska head coach. He's now at Youngstown State. I think they went all the way down to the FCS national championship game, I want to say, and then they ended up losing it. Um, Derek Rivers is extremely athletic. I was a huge fan of him going into the Senior Bowl. During the Senior Bowl week, I thought he was the most consistent pass rusher of all the guys down there. At the combine, he did everything. Like he basically tested exactly how you wanted him to test, and he's Youngstown State's uh, career sack leader. So, um, like, checks every box that you could possibly want for an FCS player, and he's still gonna end up whoever drafts him is gonna get a value because he played at Youngstown State.
Nice. Well, we're going to get this rolling. We've Justice put together probably about 15 to 18 different clips here for us to take a look at, ranging from things that are, that you must see that really talk about as positives to things that maybe he can improve upon, as well as a variety of notes about his athletic potential and technique and things he has to learn. So we're just going to talk ball, and we're going to look at these plays in slow motion and talk about what we see. Justice is going to probably do a good bit of the talking on this show, and I'm going to just add things here and there, either asking questions for follow up and playing host. So we're going to get this rolling. Make sure that Justice and I both can see the screen at the same time. And here we go. How does that look to you?
It's good to me.
All right, good. Let's get this rolling.
All right, so he's at the top of the screen. I want to talk about this first thing. A lot of people will say that they don't see Derek Rivers' athleticism, and that's true, but it's because of the situations that he's playing in. So if you want to rewind that a little bit and just
Sure.
go to the very start, for some reason, some of these cuts you're not able to see his get off first, right? Like I'm starting to watch guys in full games now instead of draft breakdown stuff, just because I like to get a feel of how they're used situationally and like what their rotation looks like, right?
Sure.
So when I was watching Derek Rivers, one thing that really stood out is Bo Pelini. Um, so Bo Pelini's guys often use what we call tackle reads. So they're not going off on the ball. So it's kind of a run first type of get off for a 4-3 defensive end. And that is something that Donnell Hunter at LSU, that's one reason why he was a huge value, was because he played in that tackle read system down at LSU, which also used like a Bo Pelini scheme. So that's one thing that you'll notice about Derek Rivers every once in a while is you kind of have to you're not going to see his get off on every single play. So right here, you could tell that he's going off a tackle read. He's going off of the offensive lineman. Basically, there's three ways that you can get off a ball. Right? There's basically you can go off of the sound of a quarterback. Right? So you're snap jumping. Um, you're either going off of a tackle, so basically first movement of that offensive lineman. That's when you're getting off, or you can go off when the ball goes, which is basically what coaches usually teach. So right here, he's coming off the ball. He's going at that offensive tackle. I think this is one of the plays where you could see him pressing out on our offensive lineman. He's only a guy who I think is like 240 or 250 pounds. His playing weight might have been in the 40s, but he's extremely strong for his size. He's a plus run defender despite his size, and he often plays with his hands above his eyes. And what that really means is that you're bending essentially in all the right places to, win leverage while still being balanced and powerful.
Gotcha.
So right there is like where he's playing with his hands above the eyes. I mean, he's pressing that guy in the backfield. Essentially, the running back has to go inside of him, which makes those linebackers' lives a lot easier.
Gotcha. Well, nice. Okay. Well, let's look at the next one here.
So he is against West Virginia. West Virginia. I think they played against, I want to say, two Power Five schools, and he did really well against West Virginia. This is him on. There was like 50 seconds left in the first half, so it's obvious pass situation. He was on the, I want to say, the quad side of the formation. So right there, you see it again. It's a reoccurring thing with him, and I think another guy like that is Vince Beagle from Wisconsin, where they're smaller guys, but they're strong and they play with their hands above their eyes. So right here, that offensive tackle is basically waiting for him, right?
Yeah.
And then you just see him get inside of him and then press him out. I want to say Derek Rivers. I'm not totally sure if he had the best bench press at the combine, but I think he had a top three bench press at the combine, and
Okay.
that was like not surprising to me at all based on what he was able to do against Power Five guys. Either in games at Youngstown State or down there at the Senior Bowl. He's definitely one of my favorite, pass rushing prospects. As far as guys who can kind of play everywhere, I think he could be an outside linebacker. I think he could play defensive end. He's really weird because I would grade him as a plus coverage guy, as far as pass rushers are concerned, and I would also grade him as a plus run defender too.
Nice. And you can definitely see the hands and feet and legs working in conjunction really well here.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I mean he's kind of a weird guy because I tried to bring him up before the Senior Bowl because I kind of freaked out when I started watching him because I was like, this. I mean, on
Yeah.
film he's a first round pick, period.
Right.
Um, but there were people who thought that Avery Moss, the guy down there at number 9, there were people who thought who was at the East West Shrine game, was a better prospect than him going into the All Star circuit. And I don't think this draft cycle hasn't played out that way. I think Avery Moss is a good guy though. He'll probably end up being a guy who's in some NFL teams too deep,
Yeah.
next year.
He does a nice job to starting this guy before he gets double teamed. I mean, I don't think he saw it. I think the timing was right there just for him to be able to do it. But I mean, good use of his hands for sure. And, you know, he gets some pressure on there. That's great.
Yep.
So let's see what we have going on here. Bottom left.
Second and 8 passing situation. Strip side. You see him go around. Yeah, see, so if you want to slow that down, I could really break down some of what's going on here. So he's kind of a he this is really interesting to me because really what you want to do, right, is you want to attack an offensive lineman with your inside shoulder when you're a pass rusher.
Okay.
Because that's how you're able to bend. That's how you're able to cut. That's how, your inside hand. If you rip, you can't rip. If your inside hand is deeper than your outside hand, right? You're able to rip up, and that's how you put a guy back. If your outside shoulder is deeper than your inside shoulder, that outside arm isn't really doing anything. You know what I mean? So
Yes.
ideally, you want to get your inside arm, upfield, and it's a closer distance to the quarterback, all things like that. So right here, he's rushing the guy, right?
Yep.
They go through, and he makes himself skinny, right? I think it's like another step, one more right there. But his outside shoulder is the one that's getting depth, right? So he's
Yeah.
making himself skinny. A lot of these pass rushers wouldn't be able to recover from that. Like there's a lot of guys who just can't differentiate their shoulders and their hips. They're not able to recover. They're kind of stiff dudes. So he makes himself skinny, and then immediately, like on the very next step, it's inside shoulder deep, and then he's redirecting straight to the quarterback. So right there,
Yeah.
it's right there. He ends up getting upfield again, and it's just redirection instantly straight to the quarterback. Done. I think that's a sack fumble. So like
Yeah.
those are things that you see. Like if you can see one play of a player doing that, he like that. If he played in the SEC, he would have been a first round pick.
Right.
Period. Like those are things that I know a lot of people talk about volume and things like that, but defensive end is such a position where athleticism usually plays out during the game and things like that. So like guys who can do that, I mean, those are the guys who are getting 10 sacks a year.
Yeah. And there are certain plays with every position where you see that, and when you find the combination of skills that go into that, you can understand why that player is an advanced player.
Right.
So let's look at it one more time in full. Explain it one more time all the way through for folks. Just one more time just to catch it.
All right. So essentially, so your his first step is stepping inside, right? Like
Right,
by alignment, really, what you should be doing on the defensive line at least. Six techniques and a three technique is your inside foot should be stepping up because that's the way that you want to penetrate on the offensive line, and it's because you want to be able to rip, right? You want to
right.
beat that one on one. You want to put him behind him. What he does is he kind of like he doesn't really have a counter, and that's something that he's going to need to learn in the NFL. But he's so good as just being a speed rusher on the outside that he contorts his body into a losing position and is still able to redirect and win with his feet and dip and get low and get back to the quarterback to get a sack fumble. So right there, that's a losing spot.
Yeah,
Like when you're outside shoulder and you're turned all the way outside like that, that's not really something that a lot of defensive linemen are able to recover from right there.
yeah. Because
That's
your
not something a
leverage
lot of
is your leverage is blown.
right. And he's able to recover from it almost instantly and then go from, getting upfield to turning to getting, flat and going after the quarterback.
Yeah,
Is right there, just sticks his foot in the dirt and he's just like, I'm gone. He's able to like it's very weird. I don't know how to explain it, but I don't know how to like it works, but you know it when you see it, where a guy's able to turn and you see him sink and it like drives all of his momentum that's moving forward going out, but then he's able to use that momentum, when he's turning at the
yeah.
same time.
Because that really is fantastic footwork and good hip flexibility to be able to turn like that. It's like and orient yourself downhill like that. You see that with ball carriers oftentimes where you get guys who, they take minimal steps to be able to avoid maybe outside gap contain and be able to cut it downhill. And you kind of see a similar type of thing going on here where he was in a disadvantageous situation and he turns it to his advantage. Yeah, that's
He's got a
tough.
couple plays like that. Yeah, he's like I said, I'm a huge fan of him. I think that this guy should probably be a first round pick. I think I like him more than guys like Derek Barnett. That's not gonna play it on draft day though.
Right. But that's what's fun about scouting talent is that it's different than looking at the draft as a whole in terms of where they're going to land. So let's look at this next one.
This 4th and 10, obvious passing situation. Looks like he's going off tackle again. So right here, I think that's just a little hand swipe. So this is another thing too, is like we've talked about this on these before. Basically, like when an offensive tackle flares out, his butt really should be pointing to the quarterback and offensive linemen's, right? And
Right.
then you move, you move on that line to get yourself in front of, a pass rusher. Right here, I mean, the guy kind of just flares out at the end, and like so his butt right now, right, is
Yep.
filming his team's sideline
Right.
instead of at the quarterback. Like that's a clear situation where guys should be using counter moves, like inside counters, either a swim, a spin, anything, right?
Right.
To get inside because usually you can't win with athleticism when a guy sells out like that. Like if a
Right.
guy sells out like that, you usually can't win. And Derek Rivers has, we pointed to one earlier already, right? He does a little hand swipe and then his immediate bend. You just see him stick his foot in the dirt and just get right after the quarterback. He does that sink thing again.
Yeah, it's two steps and I mean, one, two, and he's on a straight line.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of another one of those situations. It's not really a disadvantageous situation, right? But it's
Right.
a situation where, like, most guys with his athleticism, or most guys of his talent, right, have developed a counter move that kind of forced. You go inside, it's an inside lane, it's a faster lane to the quarterback, all that. You teach offensive linemen. There's a reason why your inside foot is up, right, on the offensive line. It's because you want to protect the inside out. You start with the inside, and he gives up the inside, and Rivers is just like ignored it basically his entire career, and is so good getting outside that it's hard to win. So like that's a type of situation that's really important because if you're able to win on the outside when that guy knows he's going outside, it doesn't matter if they slide the protection toward you.
Yeah.
Like that guard isn't helping if you're winning through the C gap every time.
Right.
So I mean that, like I said, that's like a game changing pass rusher that you have right now. I think he's legitimately like a year, maybe two away from being a 10 sack guy in the NFL.
Right, and because he's not going to do this against Tyvon Smith on a consistent basis, or a number of guys who are top right tackles or even left tackles, I would imagine he's got to be able to at least develop that counter move so that they have the threat that he may go there on occasion. Right now, is that what you're kind of saying there? Or am I putting your words in your
Yeah,
mouth?
no, no, no. Yeah, that's totally it. I think he's gonna have. I mean, he's gonna be able to beat a lot of offensive tackles early on out of the gate. But I think it's gonna kind of be like he'll probably have some like his career track will probably look at some like to some level similar to Vic Beasley's. Right, I see them as fairly similar pass rushers. Where early on, it's gonna have to your knowledge of of how offensive linemen move in the NFL and when to counter against them is going to take some time. But once that thing clicks, I mean, it's going to be automatic for him.
Gotcha. Well, yeah, it's a really nice play for sure. All right, so moving forward, we're looking at West Virginia once again. We're going to see him
So I
up
think,
at the right.
yep, he's at the top of the screen, locked up with that guy. I think some of these plays are cut late, so you can't see him, get his jump off the ball. But he's at the top. I can't remember what this play was.
Yeah, let's give it a shot here. All right, come on now. There we go. Him sniffing
Oh, so
out.
this was yeah. He overran this play. He overran and he was the contain guy. So like that, they're
Yeah,
running that play at him, and he has to be the guy to stop that. So basically, what you should be doing as a contain guy, right, is one, a guy should never get outside of you, and he does in this situation. He beats the right tackle on this, and the right tackle actually tries to like box him out. So I mean, he had free reign, but he that I don't know where that guy came from. Oh, he came from the slot. So that slot guy comes around, he should have never let him, get outside of his outside shoulder. I mean, that's what you're told as a 4-3 defensive end every single day is,
right.
pass rushing, run blocking, any, going against the run. You're the contain guy, you're the outside guy when you're pass rushing. Nothing should ever touch your outside shoulder. And that's one thing that I talked about when I say that, arm length is really overrated for pass rushers because that outside arm isn't doing anything ever. And if you turn your shoulders and you make your inside, arm long, right? They talk about long arming guys. You're going to be longer than any offensive tackle that you're going against.
Right.
So right here, I mean, when you're on the outside, really you should be aiming for a guy's inside number, and he just overruns it completely.
Yeah.
He has some work to do. He's a good run defender, right? Like, I mean, he wins at the point of attack, all sorts of stuff like that, hands above the eyes, all things like that. But he does have some things that he does need to tweak. I think he could do a better job of disengaging. It doesn't look like he has any urgency to get off blocks sometimes. And, even if he's winning at the line of scrimmage, and then he has to do a better job of, chasing guys down once he does lose contain, if he does lose contain.
Gotcha. Okay. And we'll look at one more from West Virginia. At least we get to see a snap here.
Yeah. So we got a little pistol diamond formation. You can see him winning at the line of scrimmage. I mean, look at his position compared to every other,
Yeah.
defensive player there at Youngstown State. So I mean, he's winning at the line of scrimmage. The only issue right here, right, is you got to be able to disengage or the contain guy again, and he gets outside.
Yeah.
So like you see all the tools. This is what I'm talking about. Where I say like he's legitimately like 1 year of NFL coaching. Like you get this guy with Rod Marinelli, he's gonna get like 15 sacks and be like a monster in the run game, in 2018. But right now you see all the tools, but he's not able to put everything together yet. But what he is able to put together, like, still made him, his school's all-time sack leader.
Yeah. And
This is the bottom of the screen on this one,
and look at that push.
right? I think this is the same issue where you see him winning
Yeah.
at the line of scrimmage like it's nothing, and then a guy gets outside of him just because he's like he's almost kind of like Ezekiel Ansah, where he's just trying to like maul a guy in front of him instead of like really understand what he's trying to do in this situation where it's like you're the contain guy. If you make that guy cut back, he's in the end zone redirecting toward a pile of linemen that are on the ground.
Yeah. And this looks like because he has enough here, he could have like push pulled this guy aside and shedded him to
Right.
get outside.
And he's not very he understands where he needs to put his hands, right? Like I
Yeah.
think he's really good at that, but I don't think that he really understands how to disengage. I think that's another issue with his counters and stuff like that too. I think I saw one impressive swim move, and then I didn't see a spin at all He's not really an inside ripper. He actually has some issues ripping. But like you see all the tools there. It's just you got to work with the timing and like having him recognize what he needs to do in certain situations.
Gotcha. Are there guys that you would say that are comparable in that criticism that have moved forward? Would you say that the guys you mentioned like Daniel Hunter or Ezekiel
Yep.
Anza were guys that worked out for them once they got to the league?
Yep, absolutely. And I
Okay.
think defensive line. I think, in my opinion, or line of scrimmage defenders in general, are the easiest players to kind of target because you know who's going to be. You know that the position is so based on athleticism and get honestly the coaching is so easy. I mean, you're not really like you talk about. There's a reason why defensive coordinators are almost all secondary coaches instead of defensive line coaches because there's just really not that much scheming that goes up front. So when people talk about offensive line players, like these guys aren't getting enough time to like work with each other and develop chemistry and things like that. Quarterbacks aren't getting enough reps in practice. Defensive linemen, like there's really like four things you can do,
Gotcha.
and you just got to recognize a block. Like it's really not that hard. So getting those guys on a fast track isn't that bad. I think I bring up Rod Marinelli again. I think Rod Marinelli really can get those guys like cranking in like a year. He got, want to say you say his name, Malik Collins, the kid out of Nebraska.
Yeah.
He was a defensive tackle last year. I was a fan of him, and he tested really athletically. I know a lot of people hated him just because they didn't really see the long term picture of it, right? But
Right.
what I saw is I'm like, that's a defensive tackle who has the hips of a linebacker, right?
Yeah.
And it's going to take some time, but the end result is he's going to be, a starting level 3 tech in the league. And he ended up, I think he was like a sack shy of leading the Cowboys in sacks last year. So, I mean, I think defensive linemen, if you're looking in terms of development, those are the fastest guys that develop in the NFL, and they're the easiest to pick out in the beginning. You just have to kind of have a laser focus on what type of guys you're trying to bring in.
That's very interesting, and it just sounds like more that the technique is very teachable. It's the athletic ability that isn't teachable.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, let's watch this next play and see what we got in store for Mr. Rivers here. Come on now. All
They
right.
got 3rd and 10. He's locked up with the right tackle.
And that and Bull rushes him up there.
Yep. He ends up bull rushing him. So if you want to slow it down, so this is one thing that I think people have a misconception about is with bull rushes. Bull rushes aren't necessarily a power thing; it's a speed to power thing, and that doesn't necessarily come with size. So, like, if you look at a guy like Bruce Irvin was one of the best speed to power pass rushers his rookie year in the NFL. I mean, there's a reason I think he had 8 sacks. If you want to watch him, go watch him against Brian Bulaga his rookie year, and he just thrashes Brian Bulaga. Brian Bulaga is the third highest paid right tackle in football, and
Yeah.
he's part of the best bookend pairing in the NFL. So like so right here, you see a guy who he gets really what you're trying to do as a defensive lineman, right? Is you're trying as a pass rusher at least is you're trying to half man that guy. So you're trying to figure out, like I said, like the butt orientation relative to the quarterback. Am I going outside or can I counter inside? Well, when a guy is just straight up like I'm going to stand in front of you, that's when I'm building up speed and I got to go through you at some point. And you see this offensive tackle, he's catching Rivers, and Rivers just goes inside of him, like we showed numerous times already. He's playing with hands above the eyes. He's transitioning that speed into power. He's bending at all the right places, and he's just driving him into the lap of the quarterback.
Well said. All right. Nice stuff. All right. Let's see one more here.
So this is one of the issues that I was talking about, right? Where this technique, all that stuff. Um, he's not really driving his inside shoulder, which isn't that huge of a deal. There are guys who can bend around the edge, with their outside shoulder coming around, and it looks like he's obviously one of them. But the issue is he never really puts that guy back.
Yeah.
Like that rip move never really happens. You know what I mean? Like he can get
Yeah.
his hand there, but there's no force in it. You know what I mean? Like you're really trying to essentially when you're trying to bust a rip move, right? Is you're trying to get that guy's arms basically in I don't know what you'd call it, like the opposite of your elbow, right?
Yeah.
So like you're trying to get in the opposite of the elbow and you're trying to rip that with force up to your ear hole. and he never really gets that done. So like that's another situation where it's like this is why he's not being talked about as like, DeMarcus Ware came out of Troy, right? Like
Right.
there have been pass rushers coming from small schools who have gone in the first round before. Um, there's a reason why he's not being talked about to that extent. But like you could see, I mean, he's bending around the edge like it's nothing. I mean, you could teach a guy, how to rip. I can't teach a guy how to bend around the corner like that. Like I
Yeah.
can tell you when a guy has arms on you and you see a quarterback, rip your elbow to his ear hole. And we're gonna practice that every single day, and you're gonna get more practice here than you ever got at Youngstown State. But I can't teach you, how to run at 250 pounds with your legs at a 45-degree angle outside of your shoulders.
Right. That's
That's
what.
that's not something I could teach.
Right. What you see right there is unteachable. Yeah. Well done.
Here's the NDSU game. I think this is important because this is like the one dome game, like the one dome turf game.
Okay.
You got a minute 36 seconds there, 50-yard line, so it's kind of a passing situation. Here comes the guy. Oh, I know what this one is. This is the swim. So I think they're even helping on. No, they're not helping. They got big on the right side. So it's empty, right? So it's a quick set. Those two offensive tackle or the two offensive linemen on the right know that they have one-on-ones with those guys.
Right.
So really, what they're trying to do is really they got to be speed bumps. Like it's 1st and 10. They don't need to. It's probably a quick game, something like that.
Yeah.
So they really don't need to like take long drops or anything like that. I'm just trying to get inside of you. What you end up seeing is this guy's still scared enough of his speed, and and Rivers is moving fast enough that he ends up leaning, right?
Yeah.
And when you end up leaning, you're a waist bender, and you're a waist bender. And when you're going low, okay, that's when you could do a swim move because that's when this guy is making himself shorter, right? Because I mean, you could do this at home, like bend at the waist. You're gonna be shorter than you are when you're standing tall. Like
Right.
this guy isn't looking like the left tackle
Not at
when
all.
when he ends up pulling the spit when he ends up pulling the swim move. Um, Also, what you're doing is you have your momentum going forward. So if you have any sort of action where you put a guy basically behind, right, it's the opposite of a rip, basically. Um, that he's falling forward off balance, opposite of where you're going, as a short guy because you're waist bending, and that's just like every single thing that you could not like you're not supposed to do on the offensive line, and all of that is based off of speed. You have to make an offensive lineman like fear you. That's why Aaron Donald's 6 foot nothing, right?
Right.
And he's doing swim moves against guys who are 6'4",
Right.
and that's all based off of speed. And that's another thing that everything is based off of speed, and Rivers has got it. He checks off every mark athletically. You see him. I mean, it's quick bend, redirect to the quarterback, gets a shot in.
I just love that bend around the corner and just how flattened out he gets once he
Right?
clears that edge. It's just fantastic to watch.
The only time he runs himself out of plays is those contained plays, man. I'm telling you.
Yeah. Yeah, he's got that downhill mentality. That's just beautiful.
He wants sacks. I mean, like I said, school's all-time sack leader. That doesn't happen by accident, I don't think.
No.
So you got him a 2-point stance right here. He's rushing with his inside foot up. That's opposite of defensive ends. Yeah, this guy just can't get a hand on him.
Yeah.
So this is another situation, right? So this is the opposite of that other play where they had him one-on-one.
Right.
This right guard is looking to help that right tackle, and that right tackle, like you could see it.
Yeah.
As soon as the ball is off, like that dude is sprinting backwards. Like these are situations where inside counter, inside counter, inside counter. That should be in his mind, right? And it's just not. Like he's winning in these disadvantageous situations where like that guy is flaring all the way out,
Yeah.
and Rivers is still beating him outside. And it's like they're making contact 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage,
Yeah.
something like that. Like the first contact is 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage, and that right guard is looking to help because he thought that offensive tackle was going to be tighter than that. So there's that huge gap right there. He should be thinking, I'm going inside. He's still going outside, and he's still winning. Like it's
Yeah.
a situation where he's never really had to learn an inside counter, and I understand why, and it's because he really hasn't had to at this point.
Yeah. And, Bailey here, this Aaron Bailey's a very athletic quarterback. This was a top prospect at Illinois who just never really got off the bench, who's, one of the more mobile quarterbacks we're going to see in this draft class. So,
He runs around a lot. He
Yeah.
runs around a lot. I saw that with he's really the only guy who's been able to shake, these Rivers rush attempts.
Yeah. Yeah. So good stuff. All right. So
Locked up
let's.
with West Virginia's right tackle.
All right. Come on now. There we go.
Yep. So this again, wait, slow down a little bit. Can you
Yeah.
do that? It's looking a little glitchy on my side, my bad.
No problem. Let's start from the beginning.
All right. So here we go. Rush attempt. It looks like it's gonna be a bull. Again, wide open, right? Wide open inside.
Yeah.
Okay, and he's just not taking it at all. He just doesn't want it. He'll just go outside. You see his hip flexibility, all that. Basically, so that offensive tackle is just kind of leaving his arms out there. He's not even really punching him at all, right? And when you leave a guy's arms, when you leave your arms out there, that just ends up being a steering wheel. Like you can
Yeah.
use that guy. That guy's gonna push you, and if you're beating him outside, you can use his momentum to push you into a quarterback.
Yeah. And he's already bent at the waist here as well.
Right. And he's not knocking that guy back at all. Like he's fine with being the steering wheel guy. He's not really knocking those hands down. There's no hand swipes. There's no rip move, nothing. He had that wide open counter on the inside. So like this is a guy who's doing like to some extent the wrong things, right?
Yeah.
And he's still just whooping everyone's butt that he's going against.
Yeah. Which is again just another telling sign. Beautiful. All right.
That trips third and right. That guy doesn't even touch him. Like,
Yeah.
look at that. It's quick game, right? So they're trying to set real quick. Again, wide open inside. He doesn't take it. Like, um, but that guy doesn't even touch him until right where, like there.
Yeah. And it's
Like
really, and
he,
it's
he
Rivers.
ran around him already.
Yeah. And it's actually Rivers touching him because Rivers
Yeah.
makes the first contact, basically swatting, grabbing the arm, the wrist right there, grabbing that wrist almost or swatting at it
Yep.
and getting under it, and then he's reducing that inside shoulder.
Like this guy very literally will run around you,
Yeah.
and it's quick game, so he couldn't get home. But I mean, third and 5 on like a 2-step drop, right? Like, I mean,
I mean, seriously, the
that's as
fact that
good
he's
as it
even this
gets.
close on this play is impressive as hell.
Yeah, I mean, the NFL, you're not going to see a lot of this, but I mean, if he's able to get around, even if there's there's some injury and there's a backup tackle in, and it's just instantly, this is a problem. He's going to have 4 sacks this game.
Yeah. I mean, look at that. 2 steps and throw.
And you got to remember, all this production was happening as a left end. He's not even playing right end.
Yeah.
So like and some of this too, right, is like there's some levels to like you can't really counter inside if you're playing on the strong side because that's the side with the 3 tech, right? So there's
Right.
already a guy in the B gap. So like he hasn't really even gotten those type of reps yet, right?
Yeah.
And Avery Moss is the guy on the right side, right?
Yeah.
He kind of got preferred treatment, I guess you would say, because he was one of Polini's guys who transferred from Nebraska.
Mm.
So, like he was kind of,
Yeah.
that stuff happens. I mean, we've seen that with Kaiser and that whole Notre Dame
Zaire,
situation.
yeah.
Like they're guys who are, they're coaches' dudes. You know what I mean? So
Right.
he didn't really get the reps to, even learn how to counter or anything like that.
Sure.
Third and 5, he's in the 2-point again. I think this is when everyone looks. Yep. So pre-snap, it looks like man. They got too high, so it looks like it's cover 2 man. He just picks up the running back like it's nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one thing that I think. I think he'd be a really good fit, really, for any pass rushing team because I think he could be your drop backer. I think he could be your rush backer, right? As a 4-3 defensive end, I think he could hold up at the point, like at the line of scrimmage, every single play if you teach him how to keep contain. Like literally, just teach him how to keep contain, and then he could play any spot pretty much on any defense. I will say there are certain teams like the New York Jets, right, where their outside linebackers, it's a huge. Really, they're like you're either blitzing or you're in man coverage. There's no really like zone drop, right?
Gotcha.
and I think that Derek Rivers is really athletic and can kind of pick those guys up. So I think he's totally fine. Like the problem with the Jets right now is they have a really bad have really bad outside linebackers, and some of that comes from they want to blitz, and it's easier to blitz guys, inside than outside. But
Yeah.
then that ends up putting your outside linebackers, in space, and then you have to find a guy who can play in man coverage and play at the line of scrimmage over a tight end, or like a power look or a tray counter look, right? Anything like that. Derek Rivers is a guy literally checks every single box. So I think like New York Jets, like if he's there in the second round, like you plug and play, he's your number one starter.
Where would you most like to see him play?
Well, I think the Jets would be really interesting because I think he would get an immediate shot, and I think getting him on the field, getting him those reps would be really important because I really do think he has he checks out every single box in terms of talent. Right, it's just going to be reps and time. Like it's going to be reps and time. I think Dallas is really interesting. I'm a
Yeah.
huge fan of Rod Marinelli. Right. Um, I think if he gets there, man, like that defense is a monster because that defense didn't have a pass rusher last year, and they
Yeah.
still went to that. What was it? The divisional round? Yeah,
Yeah.
the divisional round. They damn near could have been Green Bay.
With a rookie
Um,
quarterback. Yeah.
with the rookie quarterback, that offensive line is still returning. Everything looks great. Really, all they're missing is like defensive backs and pass rushers.
Yeah.
So, and Rod Marinelli made it work without those, which is absolutely insane to think of.
Yeah. Because
I think
who was that kid from L.A. who played who like at the end of the season he was having multiple sack games. I'm trying to remember
Oh
who it
yeah,
was.
yeah, yeah. What's his name? Crap.
Yeah, I don't remember either, but it's okay.
David Irvin. David
David
Irvin.
Irving.
Kid
That's
out
it.
of
Yeah.
6'7" undrafted guy out of Iowa State. I ended up writing about him a little bit. Yeah, that dude's crazy. I mean, he got Malik Collins figured out. They have Charles Tapper on deck. They really haven't seen. I
Yeah.
think he
Tapper
was
is a
on IR.
specimen. Yeah.
Yeah, he was on IR. I mean, Charles Tapper ran down Amari Cooper.
Yep.
Like that's the type of, and you get those guys with Rod Marinelli, that's fine. That dude's made Hall of Famers out of less than that. So
Yep.
I think Eric Rivers with Marinelli would be a dream.
Well, let's watch this final play and see what we got here from our man Rivers.
So again, you're looking at guard help, right? Wide
Yeah.
open inside. So that could have been a situation where he's going outside enough that he's setting up an inside counter, right?
And
But
never using it.
he just never takes it, and that guard can't even help inside because that gap is so big,
Yeah.
right? Like I you like you can't rush outside like that and win like that consistently unless you're a freak athlete. And when you just have a guy who's a freak athlete, like you just can't stop him on the edge. Like if he's just gonna beat you, he's gonna beat you. So that guy, I mean, he touches him when he's already behind him.
Yeah.
Like, I want to say like he's touching him on the way out of the door. I mean, that's a lookout block.
Yeah.
You pray. And then quarterback turns, he's following him like it's nothing. Grabs his shoulder pad, doesn't let go. I mean, a lot of guys, like I said, that's just fluid movement in space. I think like explosion is kind of overrated in terms of pass rushers because you have to do so much in space, right?
Right.
And you have to turn the corner, all sorts of stuff like that. You can't be a stiff, consistent 10 sack guy,
No.
right? And Rivers is a guy who's just absolutely fluid in his lower body. I mean, he looks like a defensive back down there. And
Yeah.
then you see him at the point of attack and he looks like a defensive tackle, right? So, and he's basically in a linebacker's body. So, like, you put all those three things together and you're like, this guy absolutely should be a first round pick. He's going to take, maybe 8 games, maybe 16 games, maybe 20 games, right? To get it right. But once he gets it right, I mean, that's a dude who, at worst, like, he's going to be Jerry Hughes, where he puts together, several 10 sack seasons.
Nice. This was wonderful. This is very enlightening, Justice, as always. So, for everybody who follows this channel, thank you very much for showing up once again and providing us someone who is really worthwhile to pay attention to if you haven't in the past.
Yeah, he's great. Like I said, he's going to make me look smart every once in a while, like that Vic Beasley one that we did.
Yep, absolutely. So that was a very good one, and we'll definitely, if Justice will have us, we'll definitely have him on for more shows. I'm gonna hopefully now that I'm sans one full time job, and down to just two. I can have a little bit more time to do a little bit more of these shows on a consistent basis. And when Justice is available, we will certainly have him on again. And you can follow Justice below on the Twitter handle that you've seen all show long. And you can check out the RSP Film Room at its channel, the RSP Film Room, or my blog at www.mattwaldmanrsp.com. Thanks again for checking us out.